Okay, I want to talk about the pigeon clutch. If you don't know, the iconic pigeon clutch first debuted in J.W. Anderson's men's fall-winter 2022 and women's pre-fall 2022 collection in January 2022. He is quoted in a bizarre interview saying, "I wanted an element of something a bit silly in the collection, a contrast to the situation at the time. Fashion has this great way of allowing us to escape reality. Also, pigeons are so inherently unglamorous. It's funny to turn it into a functional object like a clutch bag that's typically seen as quite glamorous." After the runway, the pigeon was a little bit viral online. I think both people invested in fashion and people that don't really care about fashion knew about it. A little bit after the runway, Sarah Jessica Parker was spotted wearing it as she was filming the Sex and the City sequel, and then it was later posted on her personal Instagram, and the brand decided that it would be something successful, so they produced it. So first I want to delve a little bit into the brand and then go back into why the pigeon is so controversial and iconic. This brand is Jonathan Anderson's eponymous label, which he started in 2008. The designs are often modern silhouettes with a unique and unexpected twist. Then in 2013, he was named the creative director of Loewe. On the J.W. Anderson website, they claim they earned a cult following by blending menswear and womenswear elements, which creates an idiosyncratic perspective. If you look at any part of this collection or J.W. Anderson's previous collections, the pigeon feels like an accessory that would fit in with the rest of his designs. He blends a lot of different perspectives, and his designs are often whimsical and transformative. Okay, so back to the pigeon. I wanted to get into the product description. I think Hypebeast's description is a little bit disturbing, but also like really good overview for the pigeon. The piece is meant to be held in the hand, and for when you want to use it, you can simply open up the bird's wing to access an internal cavity where all your daily essentials can be stored. Here you'll find a gold tone hinge alongside a matching magnetic fastening and embossed J.W. Anderson branding on the underside of the wing. I remember the first picture that I saw of this clutch that was getting roasted on Twitter. It was from their e-commerce website. In the picture, the person is wearing this green sweater with white pants, and it feels like a very normal outfit to style it with compared to what was seen on the runway. And the main thing I saw on Twitter was people thinking it was hilarious to sell rich people a pigeon to hold in their hand and walk around with. And although this isn't quite like a deep dive of the pigeon, I do want to touch on a couple of points to kind of bring it all together on why I think this is such an iconic piece. And part of it is that pigeons are seen as unglamorous, which is something the designer said himself. And I think that's not really true. I want to do a brief history of pigeons because I think it's relevant and also just kind of interesting. It's something that I found myself looking into the more I thought about pigeons being associated with fashion. So I was reading that pigeons are thought to be one of the earliest domesticated animals. Some of the first imagery that has been found of pigeons dates back to Mesopotamia. Pigeons were originally domesticated for their meat. They were later bred for different flying competitions and also for beauty, specifically in the early modern South Asian empire, Mughal. Much later, pigeons were used for communication as they were fast flyers and easy to train. Pigeons were also a huge part of Charles Darwin's research in evolution. And then in the 20th century, they were a popular pet for the working class as they were easy to breed and to take care of. So it was kind of something that anyone could do. Then in World War I and World War II, pigeons were used for communication. They were used for communication earlier than this, but this is like the height of their communication jobs. 32 of the pigeons that were used as carrier pigeons in World War II also won awards for saving human lives. Then, according to one of the articles I was reading, in 1983, 2 deaths were blamed on pigeons spreading disease. People started not liking pigeons. They were kind of associated with being dirty, and a lot of them were abandoned at this point. So a lot of pigeons now are feral on the streets. I think it's really sad that in the last 60 years, humans have abandoned these birds after spending thousands of years breeding them and literally spreading them over the entire world. I know that some people still have them as pets, but I think the majority of people think of them as pests and as dirty, even though there's no substantiated evidence that they spread disease more than any other bird. Pigeons are basically everywhere. They seem to survive and thrive in most big cities, despite the fact that they are so bad at building nests. And I used to love pigeons. Whenever we would go to a big city, I really liked seeing them. They like little noises were really cute to me, and I also just thought they were really pretty with the iridescent wings. I get that people think they're gross because they walk around and eat trash.
Please go away. I'm allergic.
But I kind of think they're really fashionable and pretty. Another common criticism of the pigeon clutch is that it can't even fit anything in it. And I think many luxury items are quite impractical. I would argue it makes perfect sense why this clutch would be a luxury design. The only people that I can imagine that don't need to carry around their personal belongings is someone that is rich and has someone most likely helping them carry those things around. Despite it being impractical and not being able to fit anything, that fits in with a lot of fashion, and I think a lot of people don't really care as much about that because it is a fashion item. Okay, the next part that I really wanted to get into, and a huge part of me wanting to make this video, is sumptuary laws and how a lot of people perceive the fashion industry. I'm gonna get into a little bit of fashion history, and here's a disclaimer. I'm not a fashion historian. I'm just someone who took a fashion history class one time, and also I have continued to read, and it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. There may be things that I get wrong, and if that is the case and you have better resources, please let me know them. I would love that. I'm going to get into why I think this is relevant with the pigeon. It'll all connect, I promise. So sumptuary laws started in the 13th century and tried to control what certain classes and genders should wear. People of the lower classes could now mimic noble fashions due to the wider availability of fabrics. And then in later centuries, mainly the late 14th and early 15th century, sumptuary laws were again put in place, but more with the idea of preventing vanity and social presumption. And a great resource for this, if you're interested in reading more details, is Dress and Morality by Eileen Ribeiro. I'm going to be pulling some quotes from chapter 3, The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, as it has some really great thoughts and information on sumptuary laws. The plague was one of the catalysts for the beginning of these laws. The Great Black Death, which swept across Europe in 1348, inspired both physical and spiritual fear. Such plagues, along with famine and financial hardship, were picked up by moralists who attributed their existence to God's displeasure at earthly failings, which of course included vanity in dress. A little bit later, Eileen writes, in a markedly less spiritual century, when the church found it less easy to lay down guidelines about conduct, both from their apparent ability to live lives of poverty and from an increasing reluctance by people to accept such guidance, secular authority tried to reinforce class distinctions by a series of sumptuary laws. Like the ancient Greek laws of Solon, legislation not only covered what respectable citizens could not wear, but tried to enforce a distinctive clothing on the less respectable. Such women had to dress in a way which marked them out from respectable women. How effective such legislation was in England is not clear. In France in the 15th century, prostitutes were taken to court a number of times and fined for their adherence to respectable fashions, or rather fashions above their status. Then, from the 14th century onwards, attacks on women gathered momentum. It was felt that they were more capable of being tempted into vice through their love of finery and to tempt men. At the beginning of the century, however, women still wore voluminous gowns, often with wide sleeves and a long train. Such wide sleeves travel with toe under the foot, said Robert of Brune, a canon of Gilbertine order, in a work of 1303, Handling Sin. And the skirts of the dress were long enough for devils to sit on. This is one of my favorite quotes, and something that I think about all the time, and like really stuck with me from that fashion history course that I took. More specifically, this picture from Jean Milot's Miracles de Notre Dame from 1456. This picture is just so funny to me. I believe a lot of the reasons people wouldn't want to wear skirts would be like not wanting to get them dirty or muddy, but instead this devil guy should prevent you from wearing a long skirt because it's clearly evil. And I think a lot of this kind of goes back to the church wanting to control people. Christianity had no difficulty in finding scapegoats for the economic and political failings of the world. It had found in certain forms of dress the temptations of the world, the flesh, and the devil, and had tried to instill fear into those who took fashion seriously by emphasizing the democracy of the common fate of all, death. Part of why I bring this up is because fashion is often seen as a vain thing, and it's seen as something that they do in order to boost their social standing or to attract someone. It is often overlooked as something that can be creative and expressive and a way to connect people and cultures in the world. Usually, luxury brands are seen as a display of finery and often looked down upon because they're overpriced, and people that care about that are obviously obsessed with themselves and are buying into the elitism of the fashion industry. Now, I'm not necessarily going to defend luxury brands or the fashion industry as a whole, or say that luxury is the only way to get high quality clothing or accessories. I think it's really important to look at where you're getting your clothes and how much you're consuming of the fashion industry. There are a lot of unethical and unsustainable practices that I try not to support as much as I can. My main point is that fashion at its core is art. It's a way to express yourself, and I think something that people often overlook because wearing clothes in our society is a necessity. Many people see it as part of their daily life, and the perceived extravagance and elitism of the fashion industry is seen as something that's only for rich people to consume. A lot of criticisms I hear about clothing is that it's overpriced and people who care about it are vain. But a part of fashion will always be art, and a part of luxury fashion's prices is that you're paying for a piece of art made by a designer. Specifically, the pigeon clutch feels like a piece of art to me and a part of fashion history that I want to collect. So much of fashion functions the same way that art does. I can look at a really impressive dress or a well put together runway the same way that I would look at a painting or I enjoy a film. Its function is not only that of enjoyment, but also one of expression and connection. There are several runways or designers I think that create items like this in my mind, which are things that I probably could never own. But watching the runways and seeing the details, reading about the story behind the collection, the designs, even the designer, are something I really enjoy. I also think the fact that it was designed to be worn, maybe not by everyone, or maybe it's not super functional, but I still think it's being made for a body, and that's really cool to me. Because of its proximity to the body, it feels really intimate in a way that a lot of design and art isn't. Bliss Foster actually recently posted a video that has kind of a similar topic. It covers more about the fashion industry. I highly recommend really any of their videos. They're really great and cover a lot of really good fashion topics. I think they're a lot more educated on fashion than I am, and they've been doing it for longer, so definitely check them out. Another point that I wanted to make in the same vein is that these fashion houses are providing the continuation of textile work that wouldn't exist without them. A lot of these designers work with artisans that continue this art form, or the only ones that have the knowledge of certain beading techniques, making certain laces, different textiles being made. And fashion houses, specifically luxury, are the only companies or people willing to pay the price that it takes to make those things. I wish it was something that was more accessible, and I wish more people valued these dying art forms in textiles and design, but I also appreciate that luxury labels are willing to learn these techniques and continue them, even if I can't afford them. Although this pigeon doesn't require some rare textile technique, I feel it is connected in a way that feels like the epitome of fashion for me. When it first came out, I was absolutely obsessed with it, but they had already sold out, and I also didn't really have the money to spend on that kind of item. I was also really sad that it was gone. It felt like something that no one was ever gonna like sell secondhand, and I just had to accept the fact that I was never gonna own it. And then this spring, I was reading about the pigeon again, and I checked their website, and it was in stock. So I bought it. I bet you saw that coming. My bank account definitely didn't. I just immediately felt a fogness and I needed it. And I wanted to just like grasp it in my hands, you know? At first, you might think, Samantha, that is not a bag. And let me just say, you were very wrong. It is a bag, it's a clutch. And you can put little things in a little pigeon, and he's really cute and he's pigeon sized. J.W. Anderson, you are a genius. I hate that it can unhinge its jaw. That's so wrong. Now, do I think it's worth $890? Yes and no. um, I definitely expected high quality. Definitely feel like they delivered on that. The plastic feels really heavy. The hinge feels like really secure and sturdy. The second version of this bag does not have the gold hinge or the gold like JW Anderson brand on the inside. It's just gray, which is fine. Blends in better with the pigeon in my opinion. And I get when they made it out of plastic. Like, it's 3D printed. I think that's cool. And it's sturdy. It looks very realistic. I think if you made it out of a material that's maybe more associated with luxury, it would be too fragile or it wouldn't look realistic enough. So I think the 3D printed bird is really cool. And I tried to look up how many were made or sold the first time, as there's always kind of this idea with luxury that there's a limited amount being made. I wasn't able to find that information, and I'm also not sure how much were made for the second drop either, but it is still available on their website, and I purchased mine in June, so I think there's probably more in the second drop than the first. Recently, J.W. Anderson did a collaboration with Anthea Hamilton where a limited 20 pigeon clutches with artwork hydro dipped on them were made. Each pigeon is unique, and I'm not sure the price on those. They're only available for purchase at Offer Waterman and the J.W. Anderson London Soho Boutique. That's a lot to discuss. Thank you for sitting through that if you did. Basically, I think this pigeon is just fun and kind of epitomizes the fashion industry, the fun design art part of it, and kind of the fact that a lot of people see fashion as collectibles, and I think that's a fun part of the fashion industry. Oh, and if you are wondering, I did name my pigeon. Her name is Orange, after William the Orange, a famous carrier pigeon from World War II. I kind of wanted to show you how I would style it. And I was a little bit inspired by this Twitter user, Pigeon Mask, Pigeon Heels, Pigeon Clutch. But I wanted to make it a little more luxury, a little more high fashion. First, I would want to wear this look from Loewe Fall 23, designed by J.W. Anderson. And then on the J.W. Anderson brand Instagram, this image was posted for the men's spring summer women's resort summer 24. And I didn't see it on the runway. I can't find any pictures of someone wearing these shoes, but like pigeon shoes, ugh, come on. Like, I want them so bad. With this look and the pigeon clutch, I'm a giant pigeon, basically. I probably will never be able to afford that look with the feathers or those shoes. I don't know if they're ever going to be made. Here is how I'd style it with the clothes that I already have in my wardrobe. This outfit I like to call
Put a bird on it!
So I use these socks from the botanical garden. They did used to be the same color, but I ruined one of them in the wash. And then I'm wearing my vintage, I think it's 1980s duck decoy shirt with a blue sweater vest and just a black skirt, and then my loafer Doc Martens. And then the next look, I styled this Rachel Comey jumpsuit that I got secondhand. And then I'm wearing the Maison Margiela tabbies. They're the only other luxury item I've ever bought besides this pigeon clutch. I feel like something is missing. That's right. That makes it better. And yeah, I think orange looks really great with a cowboy hat. And here I'm showing you what I can store in the pigeon. I have my ID, my credit card, Tide pen, of course, Milk Cosmetics lip balm, my inhaler, and then a mask. And then I took Orange on a little trip outside, and she had a great time. I think she really enjoyed herself. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you see a really cool bird today. Bye!